anything.
Good morning. We're live now on YouTube. It is now 10 a.m. on February 9th, 2021, and the TBVME board meeting is now in session. Missed my gavel still, but sounds bad. I want the, okay, anyway. So, I need a full board roll call to order, roll call, and vote on absences. Lynn Kreiner.
Okay, Jessica Quillivan.
Present.
Keith Pardue. Oh,
Mute everyone.
he's muted. Keith Pardue. Sandra Lynn Kreiner here. Carlos Chacon.
Here.
Samantha Nixon.
Here.
Randall Skaggs.
Present.
Michael White.
Here.
Sue Allen.
Here.
Victoria Whitehead.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Our next item is consideration and approval of the September 22nd, 2020 minutes. I do have a few corrections. Does anyone else have anything?
I have at least one, I don't know how important it is, correction on verbiage.
Go ahead.
Okay, on the first paragraph, right after the rules, let's see. It states, others voice their opinion about some vets being in a rural area. I think it needs to be R-U-R-A-L.
Yes, thank you. I noted that one as well.
Okay, all right.
I think it's page 4 of the actual minutes in line 1 is what notes I have. I don't know if that helps find it, Patricia. Rural, not rule.
The country.
I had one other one on page 16 of the minutes. Sessom is not a doctor. He is an LVT. He's listed as a doctor there in a section of the minutes there. And in the second paragraph, I'm having trouble pulling up the minutes in front of me. I have utilized in quotes on the last line. It should say utilized. Did you find that, Patricia? I'm looking for it.
I am still listening.
Ooh, you have some feedback there. Oh, yeah, it's just page 16 where it says David Sessom and then it says Dr. Sessom spoke on. That should be not doctor, but LVT. And then the second paragraph down, the LVT advisory committee should be an advisory committee utilized by the board, not utilizes. So I can send those to you via email and we can move on if anyone has any other changes, or we will approve the prior minutes.
Move.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Anyone?
A second to approve.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
oppo- Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are corrected. Item number 3, Executive Director's Report. Mr. Hellenberg, please.
Morning, board members. You should have a written copy of my report. I'm just going to go through it briefly here, and then if you have any questions, please let me know. We're going to talk about a few of these items in their own agenda item, so we'll just move through the report real quick. As you know, the legislative session has began, and there's been a couple bills filed that affect veterinarians. However, they do not affect our agency directly. I've included those in the report, as well as the text of those at the bottom of the report. It basically talks about a critical care protection program for veterinarians offices, so that they don't suffer a power outage while there's a critical procedure going on there. And then the other one is relating to a rural veterinarian incentive program filed by Representative Darby. And so the text of those are in the report as well. We're going to talk about sunset in its own agenda item. So this is just for reference for that. We'll circle back to the sunset process. But they did issue recommendations. Dr. Quillen and I attended the meeting with Sunset in January or in December, I guess. And so we'll talk about those findings. Continuing education is still status quo on that. It's still suspended under the governor's emergency declaration. We continue to encourage those licensees to get as much continuing education as possible, but I believe that's an agenda item for today as well. The new data system, which is again another agenda item for today, we'll talk about. I am pleased to say, overly pleased actually, to say that the Public Verify portal is now live. It went live this morning. So you'll see a different look to it when you go do the Public Verify. It's work in progress still. However, it's live and displaying information. Currently, we're working on getting the orders imported into it with the vendor to do a mass import of 600 and a little over 650 orders into it. So that's coming. We can talk about that more as we go through the agenda. Quickly on our operations, our finances look good. I have a finance snapshot there of it. You'll notice that we're at 45% expended in 42% of the year. That is due to us encumbering the full amount of the new licensing system throughout the year. Instead of paying it monthly, we encumbered it all at the front of the year. So that'll line out as we go forward. Last year we paid it monthly. This year we encumbered it all together. So that's where you'll see that little spike on our expenditures.
Thank you. It was one of my questions. Please proceed.
Licensing, you'll see here what we've done with licensing so far this fiscal year. We're 42% through the year. Well, actually a little more than that today, but you'll see the DVM, LVT renewals and new licenses issued. There's also a report of the new licensees, the folks that we've issued new licenses to, included at the end. If you look at our enforcement stats there, normal activity with the exception of inspections. We've held the inspections back, obviously with COVID concerns. And so we haven't been doing inspections, and you see that there's been no cases coming out of inspections on the 00s there. We have brought in 50 cases last month. We're carrying about 223 cases, and you see the stats there. We're down to 13 FY19 cases in enforcement. So the bulk of those cases are now, of the 232 or 223 cases, the bulk of those are FY21 cases, with 13 out of 19 and 70 out of 20. You'll see the breakdown of the 306 cases in legal on where they're sitting. You'll see that our ICs are creeping up on us a little bit. We've got 122 cases. This is caused primarily from enforcement churning cases out, and then trying to catch up with our ICs process. I know that we're moving toward doing ICs more regularly. Quite honestly, with the Zoom meetings, the ICs have been going pretty smooth. It's a long 8-hour day for the reviewers to sit there or the panel members to sit there and go through those. It's grueling, but we're making it through those. Then you'll see the text of the bills and such. I would like to also point out, I didn't include it in my written, we still have an investigator in the hospital who has been seriously ill with COVID-19 since November. He's making good progress. They've downgraded him out of the ICU. When I say that he's been in serious condition, he's been in serious condition. But it looks like he's doing better. They've taken him out of the ICU unit, and he seems to be fighting recovery pretty well. So with that, I don't have anything else on my report, pending any questions that you have.
I don't have any questions. I'm not hearing any now, but it looks like Ms. Sharkey, as part of this item number 3, wants to update us on the medical review process.
Yes, so we're very excited to be rolling out a new and improved and streamlined version of the medical review process. This is really a joint effort between the enforcement team, legal, and our board members, who were telling us what we were hearing about things that they needed or wanted from this process to make it easier on all parties involved. So we've rolled out new medical review forms with easy to fill out boxes, so we can ensure that records are complete at the medical review stage. And we can also get a little bit more requisite information at that medical review stage to make it more obvious what we were looking for. So those medical review forms are being rolled out and utilized now. So hopefully at, a board meeting sometime later this year, you might actually start seeing some of those cases with the new medical review sheets in place. So we're very excited.
Are they coming out like today? We're sending all our cases with them, or did it happen before this meeting, or?
It's already been happening. So the new forms have already gone out on some cases. So we should start seeing them very soon on this end of things.
Okay. Great. Any questions on that, anyone? Or discussion? Thanks to everyone who gave their input, mainly the reviewers, on these forms, and helped us create something that hopefully we'll make sure it's more complete when you guys get them to review, and easier to check off what you have. Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Sharkey. Agenda item 4. Update on Sunset Commission and data systems. Mr. Hellenberg, please. He's holding on. We're on hold.
There we go. So just to recap this, and this was this is, as I've testified for this board, this is what has caused my gray hair and balding. This computer system, this data system, has been a challenge, both on the vendor side and just on getting clean data into the system. This was the one item that was not completed in time for the sunset review. The Sunset Commission did a review of our kind of procedures around our data importing and what our new system looks like. And they did in their report recognize the challenges that we've had with our vendors. But we are coming to a rollout fairly quickly. We just last week received certification from the Comptroller's office on the payment portal renewal. That was a huge process and a huge achievement to get, and that was the major holdup in the deployment of this system. However, we got the certification last week. We've had successful renewal tests go through the system, and we're working to fine tune that and get as many issues resolved ahead of time before we roll in. The public verify page is active now on our website. So now if you go to our website and you search, you'll see real-time data coming back on licensees and their discipline status. Currently, if a licensee has discipline status, you'll have an indicator there that says that they do with a statement that they need to make an open records request for that information. That is a temporary measure until the 650 something disciplinary actions get loaded into the system. Once that happens, then a person searching that licensee will be able to view and print that information in real time. So we're expecting that import to happen over the next week or so. Without getting too much into the technical difficulties, the agency stored that information by last name without a license number in the file type. And so matching those documents, those PDF documents by file name to a licensee's record is taking some work. And so that's still ongoing, but I'm excited about that process. It should also be noted, and I testified this to Sunset, we were given all the challenges with this new system. We did this without a single extra dollar from the state legislature or from going up on licensees. And so there's been some discussion here in the office about, had we have asked for money from the legislature or gone up on licensees, would this process have been any smoother? And I'm not sure the answer to that is yes. The challenges that we've faced are directly surround the data that was in the old system. So, I think we've done the best we do for no additional money, and I think the licensees, once they see this system, they'll be happy with it. That's all I have for that. If you have any questions of me.
Any questions? We'll move on to item 5, discussion and possible action regarding the enforcement of practicing without a license. Mr. Hillenberg again.
Okay, this is a initiative that we've come together in partnership with some agencies in discussion, with some law enforcement agencies in discussion. Since I came to the board in 2017, we've heard about the problems with enforcing criminal provisions of the act. That ultimately led to House Bill 1099 being filed out of the 86th session to give the agency law enforcement authority. That bill, as you remember, passed the House and Senate and then was vetoed by the governor. And so it came to a stop. In discussions with the governor's office, the concern appears to surround the fact that there are quite a few law enforcement agencies in Texas, and there's some concern about having more law enforcement agencies. So what we did is we went back to the drawing board and kind of looked at what the need is. And the need is really to be able to do investigations surrounding these practicing without licenses. And that really requires the use of some law enforcement tools to be able to do that. So we met with some law enforcement agencies and discussed the problem. And what came out of that discussion was contracting with law enforcement agencies to do those type of investigations. Given our current authority to use prosecutors to investigate cases, we looked at the ability of entering into interlocal agreements for law enforcement agencies to conduct those investigations for us or assist us with that in forming a task force to go after those folks. In that conversation, as a byproduct of it, was why can't those law enforcement agencies who participate in this task force also provide a opioid and controlled substance continuing education program out to the veterinarians, especially in rural areas. And so we looked at the potential of adding that to this idea. And so what that would look like is that we would train members that wanted to participate in this task force. We would train those folks on the security requirements and the opioid legislatively required mandated continuing education. And then we would allow them to teach that and give continuing education for that. And so that's kind of where we're at. The law states that to enter into an interlocal agreement for state agencies to enter into interlocal agreements with each other, or for state agencies to enter into agreements with local government, it requires the governing body's authority to do so. So what I'm asking for today is your permission by board action to move forward with this program and enter into some interlocal agreements with local departments and district attorney's offices to conduct these type of investigations for and provide opioid continuing education.
I have a lot of
Do you have any
questions.
questions?
I have a lot of
All right.
questions. Who picks the contractors? How do we make sure that we're dealing with individuals who don't get overzealous? How do we, I like the idea. Let me state that right off the bat. I like the idea, and it's an obvious solution. It's obviously a win-win for everybody involved. I guess my question is who's going to oversee the carrying out of the program? Because, for example, like I trust it right now because you're in charge, John, and you come from a background that is in law enforcement, and Mike Tacker comes from law enforcement background. So we have people with that in place. But should we enter into a time when we have people that don't have law enforcement backgrounds, how as a board do we make sure that our stakeholders and the public that may be involved in these investigations don't feel at risk, that it's like, it's a complicated, I think, issue.
Sure. And so I think your question has two parts to it. One is you're correct. We would drive the training and direction of the task force, just as we do that now for contracted investigators. The second part of that is in the event that there was a change in leadership, then the board would have the ability then to either cancel or change or modify. I guess change and modify is the same word, the contract. And so ultimately the board would have an out clause to terminate a contract.
Well, I just want to say I do like the idea of actual law enforcement trained by you and Mr. Tacker to be involved in this, because it's been a real stumbling block for the agency in terms of cases in rural areas. A lot of the investigators that we have now, I wouldn't want to put them in harm's way to go investigate some of these situations, which I don't think the general public and even some of our stakeholders realize how dangerous some of the situations can be. So I like the idea. I think it's a great win-win for the agency if this can be carried out well.
Is it possible, John? I mean, you're asking for permission to continue to look into this or to actually create contracts with a couple of agencies or a couple of individuals as freelance in their agencies?
No, so I would only want to contact with the departments themselves. This wouldn't be contracted with individual officers. So for instance, let's say that a sheriff's office, and we'll use the border region, let's say that a sheriff's office in the border region says, yes, we want to sign on to this and we want to help you with this, these types of investigations. What the task force would be allow that sheriff's department to join our task force and then use the resources of this agency coupled with their agency to investigate those. And we would have to approve and train the people that they assigned to it. And in talking to a few agencies, they have some folks that volunteer in the state of Texas. You can be a reserve peace officer and basically work for the agency for no money to carry your law enforcement commission. In talking to some of the agencies, they currently use some of those reserve investigators for SPCA type investigations and some other stuff. In those cases, if a department wanted to give one of those resources over to use, that's a cost savings of measure for both us and them.
Like I have a question. You know, right now it's their responsibility. If each law enforcement agent, it's their agency, it's their responsibility to investigate these cases. So basically what we're doing is paying these guys extra money to bring that to the forefront of causing them to investigate, right? I mean, because legally we really don't, we can file and send them a letter to stop, but it's up to law enforcement to regulate that. And so then that's their task with that job already. So why would we want to throw more money at that when they should be handling? I mean, shouldn't you get some pressure from maybe the governor or some of those other agencies that don't want law enforcement to bring that to the forefront, or is that what it takes? Is us spending money to do that?
But I don't think we would spend any money. I'm not looking at paying these agencies to do this. This would be allowing those agencies to enter into a partnership with us, where if there was any money, it would revolve around travel reimbursement and not funding them to do.
But how is that going to change what's already going on? I mean, I just kind of on the outside looking in, I don't really know how that would change things actually.
Sure. So if we had, let's say, 3 agencies in the task force, then those investigators within that task force could work across county jurisdictions to work a single case. And so where we may have a sheriff's department who has a resource to give us a deputy, that deputy then could work in that county or in any of the other counties assigned in the task force to that. And so some counties may want to sign on to the task force, but not give necessarily a deputy to it. But nevertheless, that would give us the ability to enter into that county and investigate and charge that.
Okay, thank you so much. That makes a lot of sense. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I want to follow up on what Dr. Skaggs was saying, because I understand completely what he's saying, because I've been asking that same question for a couple of years, is that whenever these cases have come across where we need law enforcement, I've always been told, well, the problem, Dr. Mixon, is it's a horse, it's a dog, it's a cat. And when you put that and line it up with rape or pedophilia or murder of human beings, we fall way down the list. So I see what Dr. Skaggs is saying, and I agree with that. Is this interagency task force, is this going to help us put animal issues to more on the forefront so that they're taken more seriously and we can get resolution? Because for years you kind of just learn to throw up your hands when it involves, law enforcement, because you just can't get any help.
Yeah, and you know, speaking from experience in that, you're correct. That is the challenge that we're up against, and it's providing, you know, the people that truly care about that are. Let me rephrase that. The people who are paid to care about that are us and our investigators. Our investigators are challenged right now that they don't have criminal jurisdiction in the counties to do that. But with a county signing on as part of the task force, that would give us the ability to work through that agency to get some attention to the cases that need to be filed.
Dr. Quillen, I'd like to move that we allow Mike to go ahead with the direction that he's pursuing in this case.
I second that.
Is there some specific wording, John or Brittany, that we need to state, or just that we're approving for you to continue to pursue this avenue?
Yeah, what I need is the ability, the authorization from the board to continue in this direction and enter into an interlocal agreement with a law enforcement agency for this purpose.
So moved.
Agreed.
Great.
A move, I need a second again. Chacon,
Second.
Pardue or Chacon. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
President Quillivan,
Yes.
I would just like to ask, in pursuing this and continuing, that staff follow up with kind of some information on the legalities of, we have private investigator authority, but I just have concerns based on the governor's veto and their direction of where are we pushing the boundaries in what we are not allowed to do without legislation. So I'm sure Brittany and Mr. Hellenberg have looked into this, but I'd really like some information, as well as any information we have on, does the governor's office support this direction as we continue forward?
John, do you have active information on that, or do you want to give us some type of report later?
Yeah, so, sure, I can give you a report later. You know, without having board approval, I didn't want to go too far into the conversations. We have talked to a senator and representative both about the idea. Of course, the House and Senate both unanimously, or didn't unanimously, but they approved the bill last time. So both of them thought it was good. But before I go to the governor's office and talk to them, I wanted the board's blessing on that.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Whitehead. John, you'll keep us posted. Or me posted, and I'll keep the board posted as I'm supposed to do. Any further questions or discussion regarding that? Okay. Was there something? I heard a blip.
No.
Moving on, item number 6, discussion, recommendation, and possible action regarding proposed rule changes to be published in the Texas Register. Ms. Sharkey.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Quillivan. So at the last board meeting, we discussed what would happen with CEs once the governor's emergency declaration is lifted. It's obviously a question we're getting a lot from our licensees as well. And there was some discussion about either reducing the amount of required in-person hours or doing away with that requirement totally. So I provided 2 options here of language. One does away with the virtual or in-person distinguishing, and then the other is a reduction in the virtual or a reduction in in-person education required. I've looked into what other states are doing, and currently 34 states by my count don't make a distinction on in-person or virtual requirements. So if we did abolish that, we would be with the majority of other states currently. Some states, though, do make a distinction between interactive versus non-interactive courses, and that's where they draw that line. So And RACE, the program that we are using through AAVSB, also keeps track of that. So that may be an option you all would like to explore. So happy to answer any questions or entertain a discussion on this.
Well, I would say I don't think we should reduce the number of hours required each year, but I do think that we should allow it all to be virtual at this point.
Oh, yes. And Dr. White, this is not reducing overall hours. It's just either removing the requirement that some be done in person or reducing the amount of in-person required, but allowing you to do that remainder virtually.
I don't think we should make a distinction between the two.
And I think obviously, at least what I've been seeing as I'm the one who approves non-race CE for CE in Texas, at least for our board, with Zoom, as we know, I mean, it is interactive. They're doing case rounds, on Zoom, and I guess that's technically called online CE. So I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm approving. They're still doing, doctor rounds, come talk to the specialist and bring cases and case discussions, which I think is great. And that's a lot of the part of going to a conference, sitting at lunch and talking to other doctors there about cases and things like that is a huge education thing. Tons of specialists, of course, all the specialty centers want to reach out to their clients, which are us veterinarians. So I also agree with Dr. White regarding, sorry, there's dogs. I'm going to mute in a minute, but regarding that we could go to all, quote, virtual. Any other comments?
Yeah, as someone who homeschools, I have no problem with all the virtual learning. And let it be a choice to be at a conference instead of a requirement. And I think, I don't think it'll hurt compliance, and it certainly isn't going to hurt education. And some of the Zoom meetings I've done a couple, and the speakers are amazing, and their PowerPoints and slides and videos are amazing. And really what you need is the hands-on for certain things when you do the wet labs, dental, ultrasound, surgical procedures. But other than that, it's a way to be interactive with a lot more people. And it's easy to track who was there and how long they were there.
And of course, they all still have to be approved either by race or by the state. So,
Well, I feel that, as we talked about this earlier and kind of brought it up, it's just harder for us out here in the rural areas to get that education. And really, I think when you do it online, I've done both a little online and in person. I really almost think I get more out of it online than I do in person, because it feels like you're more involved, you're more engaged rather than sitting out in the audience and just kind of listening as things go. And I just think it's time that we look at maybe coming into the future.
Absolutely. So option one in your board materials of the language is that removes the requirement, the distinction between in-person and virtual. So if it sounds like that's the route we're going, so I think that would be, the motion would be to accept option one as the language we will propose.
I'd like to make that motion that we approve option one.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask not a question related to this, but a tech I know that recently renewed, I think she contacted for clarification because the CEs are currently waived. They said, if you've got your CEs, go ahead and check that on the form. Could there be some blip put out on the board website when they renew that they can indicate that, they are actually currently up to date, although that's not a requirement, or is that a requirement? Did she understand that correctly?
When I renewed last July, the checkbox wasn't even there, I don't think.
Okay.
I don't think it's there.
Okay, thank you. I wasn't sure.
it will come back on, but eventually, and we have some discussion regarding how it's going to work when we come back online and COVID emergency is over. So currently, at least when I renewed, there was no CE checkbox
Okay.
to renew. So any further discussion regarding those topics? Okay, let's move on to item number 7, board discussion of board member appearing in TVMA sponsored podcast to discuss equine dentistry rules and statutes. Dr. Mixon, wow.
This came out of the last board notes. So if you scroll down to the last board notes, there was a section where we had a discussion because not just veterinarians who practice dentistry are concerned, but also equine dental providers in the state are concerned that the numbers of people applying for licensure and complying with CE for equine dental providers is dropping because the perception is that the Texas State Board is not going to punish or follow up or sanction people who are practicing without a license. So after that discussion, I was contacted by a young woman who does podcasts for the TVMA stakeholders about all different kinds of issues. And I guess one of our lawyers that appears before us a lot had heard the discussion and referred her to me for a potential podcast about that. So I wanted to get permission and authorization and any kind of discussion that board members wanted to have about what they would like to see discussed in a podcast like that. You know, what kind of information we want out there. I'll try and make it as entertaining as possible. It's kind of a dry topic. But it would be a good idea to go briefly through the statute and basically do a podcast that's sort of down and dirty and says to the stakeholders, here's what the statute says, here's what the board rule says, and here are the real concerns that the Texas legislature had 10 years ago about drug use, who's selling it, who's using it, and who's monitoring it. That's really their big concern. And so I just wanted to get permission to do that kind of a podcast for the stakeholders as a board member, and concerns or ideas that board members would like addressed concerning equine dentistry specifically in that kind of a podcast.
Well, number one, I would certainly want our executive director and legal counsel to approve such type of action. And maybe it's something, I don't know. I mean, I trust you to content. You do a lot of, as a veterinarian and a board member and doing tons of equine dentistry, I trust, you know what you're talking about. So I have no concerns there. But definitely would want our legal counsel to chime in on any doings of the podcast before it's published.
Exactly. And the young woman,
the more we can educate everyone, the better. So I love the idea.
great. Yeah. And the young woman who does the podcast, I'm blanking on her name now. She was fantastic. She actually asked if our legal counsel would actually help me come up with the questions because she doesn't know anything about equine dentistry either. So she was like, well, that'd be great if your legal counsel and you could come up with sort of the format, and then we could have a really educational piece. So it would totally be John and Brittany would dictate the content, and then we'd flesh it out.
When were we looking at doing this?
Oh gosh, not right away.
Yeah. Well, I was just, the reason I ask is it would be excellent, I think, with what we've talked about, discussed this morning about practicing without a license and our ability then to get a little bit more enforcement, to put that into the program.
Oh, good idea.
Something more credible, I mean, more on paper, to know that what we anticipate doing and can do that may alleviate some of the people being nervous about, not wanting to do it because they feel like no penalties involved. Well, that may alleviate that. So I think it's a good idea, though. I think the more that they hear, the more practitioners hear from us as a board directly, it cuts out some of the gray areas and it allows them to practice with a little bit more sense of comfort.
I love that. That's a great idea. I hadn't thought about that. John, so do we want to basically basically wouldn't do a podcast until we have another board meeting, or how does that work, John?
Or Brittany, how does that work? I mean, I would think you and Brittany can start having some meetings, and Carl Mitz, who's our chair of our EDP committee can certainly chime in if, I know you've spoken to him, I think.
Yep.
And work together to create or compose, the topics which you kind of listed, but maybe a more detailed outline.
Yep.
I don't know that the board needs to I don't feel as a board member or the presiding officer that I need to approve it. If the three of you and Carl work together, would this be an ad hoc committee, or this is just part of board job? Brittany, what do you suggest here to get this done?
I think it's easiest just to treat it as a board task. This is a board member working with the support of staff.
Yep, exactly. Beautiful. Okay, so you guys get together and do something.
Excellent.
Dr. Mixon, could you note or clarify that, trained licensed techs would have some ability to work under the doctor doing this, and just the difference for, I don't know that the public is going to be part of this information, the difference between a non-EDP or a lay person versus somebody that had some formal training, just to, because, that protects the public.
Yes, in fact, that's one of the big points that we have to drive home, is that there are a significant number of men and women in the state of Texas who have really bothered to work hard at abiding by the law. They do their CE and they work with veterinarians under direct or general supervision. And we really need the veterinary community to support those people in order to keep the non-licensed people from proliferating.
Thank you.
So I'll work on that.
So, Dr. Mixon, I know you said you were concerned that it's a dry area, but
It is.
given that the mouth of a horse is usually a wet area, I'm sure that you can get around that.
Thank you, Mr. Pardue. I will try and be entertaining.
You will be, I'm sure.
You will. She's good at that. Any further discussion or questions regarding item number 7?
You've opened a can of worms when you get this done and it looks good, right? It's going to have to be done for a whole lot of other
topics. Which I think we're moving on to, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful idea. It may, we may not get a bunch of them out this year or next year, but I think it's a wonderful idea to educate everyone, our stakeholders, all of our stakeholders, the public, all our licensees. It's a win-win for everyone.
I completely agree. This is an opportunity for free, low-cost education in a fun environment. And I know in my profession, I listen to podcasts all the time just to get the latest. So I think this is great, and I can't wait to hear it.
Oh boy! Now the pressure's on.
Pressure.
I'm like, how to make horse teeth entertaining? Okay.
Just do your thing. Just do your thing. Okay. Any other further comments? Okay. Nicely done, Dr. Mixon. Thank you. But we have you again. Item number 8: discussion of the addition of a rules committee to the board's standing committees.
Okay, so this is one of my little darling pet things I've always wanted to do. Is I really wanted to work on the rules because I really want to make them more streamlined, and I really want our stakeholders to not have to have a legal degree to read a rule that they're supposed to follow. I'd like them to be able to read it, and even if they don't understand every word, they're like, okay, I can do that, I can't do that. I can do that, I can't do that. So my issue is that I'm kind of pleased. I think Sunset Commission may have also looked at it and come to the conclusion that they would also like us to get more active with our rules restructuring. So I would really love a rules committee on the board, and I would like to be on the rules committee on the board.
I would too. Ms. Sharkey, what are our procedures is this an ad hoc committee?
You could make it a standing committee. You have the ability to add those at any time if that's the will of the board. So it's either is this something that you feel is going to be like an ongoing permanent project, or something that can be done within a year and then we can disband them. So if make it a permanent standing committee.
Take a long time.
Well, yes.
Okay, so we can create it as a new standing committee. Dr. Mixon, how many, I would think we don't want too many people. It's going to be very arduous work and long-term work, but we can take it stage by stage. Do we want, who do you want to populate this?
Well, I think this is what I would do is now that we've all been on the board for a significant amount of time, we realize that everything we commit to takes more time than we thought it would. So with that in mind, what I would love to do is go through the rules one by one. And we did do a couple way back when I first came on the board. So a couple that were addressed, but like, let's say we pick a rule and we say, okay, so does anyone on the board have a specific interest in this rule? If you do, throw some comments toward the committee that formulates it, so that that person maybe doesn't have to be on the committee, but let's say Dr. Skaggs has a particular interest in a rule that pertains to autoclaves, I don't know. And he's like, I really have an interest in how we oversee that. And so then we would say, okay, we're going to look at the rule on autoclaves. Please send input to Dr. Quillivan or Dr. Mixon by this date so we can incorporate your concerns into this writing.
I think another option, and yes, if anyone certainly has a hot topic in their mind of a rule that they don't like, but I was thinking of starting at the beginning and just going down one by one. And then if we had changes, submitting it at the next board meeting, however far we get through. But I'd like to collaborate with you on this. I think I have some time I pulled up legislative stuff and rules stuff, and I was trying to match them. And I started a list, and it,
Is it legal for us though to communicate that way, where if we each contribute and still not be classified as having a quorum in a meeting, as far as like on that? I would think that probably we would be looking at better suited we have standing committees already that have been outlined with who's on it and when they're on it and when they're appointed. We probably would be better off, don't you think, of following the guidelines of our other standing committees of 2 veterinarians and just to make it easier and not make it so vague.
We definitely can't have, all the board members on a committee meeting. That
right.
Work. I think what Dr. Mixon and I are offering is for us to start to think about rewriting some of the rules more clearly. The 2 of us just start to try to get into it, and then
But if we're going to do that, shouldn't we have like all of our other standing committees where there's guidelines as to who's on it, Brittany?
Yes, Brittany.
So the way that we're actually, I think, looking into our rules, the way we're going to have to do it is we can establish an ad hoc committee today, and then we're going to have to amend our rules to include this committee, and the rule on the committee will then dictate makeup, parameters, and all of that, and how the committee functions. So then we can at least have that. We can start ad hoc today and have folks starting to look into it, and then by the next meeting, we can have language drafted to approve what a permanent standing committee will look like, and then y'all can have input on the makeup of the committee at that point.
And what are the requirements for ad hoc committee?
Just that we're making it would be a motion today, and you would appoint who you would like to be on the committee today. And then, like I said, once we establish the rule, we can talk about makeup, how many members there are, what that looks like, and the parameters for the committee.
Are we getting the cart before the horse though? Can we not just go ahead and amend our rules and then at the next meeting go ahead and assign that committee?
So the problem is that we would have to, I would propose language at the next board meeting, and then give you all the chance to debate and edit and refine that. And then it would still be a while before we could officially adopt the language. So we're talking probably it wouldn't be within this, it might be
a year.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Just fortunately, it's a long process.
Yeah, no kidding.
Dr. Quillivan, I have just a quick comment on that.
Yep.
One thing that we told Sunset when we went through the review, or at least I told Sunset, was there's 13 references in the statute to a rule. And I've been told we can't get down to 13 rules, but
no, yeah.
I know that's that's the pro of the governor's office, is to minimize as much rules as possible. And I will sure help to get those down to the bare minimum rules and let statute, kind of dictate, and then rules for better define. That's what I would like to.
I agree. Yep. So is there a problem with, Brittany, an ad hoc committee of myself and Mixon? What I really didn't want to do, because Mixon and I are on the IC panel, what I really didn't want to do is have all our other medical reviewers veterinarians on the board who I know are bogged down with medical review to feel like they have to commit to this committee right now. So is it possible on an ad hoc committee for Dr. Mixon and I to just start kind of taking notes on statute versus rule edits, potential, just ideas, and then, at next as an ad hoc thing, and we can be in touch, and then create the committee. Can you advise me on that, please?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great start to this process, because it is unfortunately going to be a lengthy process to get this going. So if you guys can start that background work and then let the official committee, really sort of take that and run with y'all's foundational work, I think that would be great. I would also, and I'm volunteering someone here, but we do have a fabulous new board member who is an attorney, who would also be a great public member addition to this ad hoc.
I would be more than happy to serve on this committee. I'm a kind of a bylaws and a rules nerd.
She just threw Victoria under the bus. Victoria, you definitely want to do this.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm sorry, Ms. Whitehead. I had a distinct feeling that you might be a rules and bylaws kind of gal. And so I thought you would be a fabulous addition to this committee.
You're making me sound like a real fun person.
You are.
You are.
Well, I also know that Candace has raked through our rules many, many times. So is a staff member allowed to be on committee, or that may be someone that we're throwing ideas to, or what can we do there?
So we can't serve on committees as staff, but we can be there to help and advise and provide support to y'all in your mission.
Okay. Got it.
So I'll make the motion that we have Dr. Quillman, Dr. Mixon, and Ms. Whitehead be on this ad hoc committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. Motion carries. So we will start working on some ideas, and Brittany will get us into the next board meeting to create a big committee. Thank you. Moving on to item 9, discussion of the formation of an ad hoc committee to clarify medical records rules and produce a continuing education course on that subject. Dr. Skaggs.
Thank you. It's this difficult project, I think, to undertake due to the varying opinions and the varying case needs. So it's almost impossible. But if we're charged with determining what information and the depth of information that's needed in the records, then I think it's our obligation to provide that information, or at least some guidelines to practitioners in the state. Now, with this last conversation, it may be a unnecessary thing to do at this point, because I know you guys are going to be going through the rules and the regulations, and it may be a good point to look at those and determine, how we want to refine those. So it may not be in need of an ad hoc committee at this point, but I know that there are some people and some entities out there that are doing continuing education on medical records and what's needed and how to do that, which in my mind is creating quite a bit of fear and discomfort in our veterinarians. And I just feel like that if we are charged with determining what needs to be in those medical records, shouldn't the continuing education be coming from us? I feel like as a group, we require way too much information in comparison to our dental and physician colleagues about as far as medical records go. I think we're holding our practitioners to an unfair standard when you read your own medical records and they're just a skeleton of what we require those guys to do. And I just like the thoughts of the board as to kind of where we should go from here. And again, with this new rules committee that we're looking at going, fixing up, it may be a moot point.
I actually agree with you, Dr. Skaggs, on the medical records issue has been, it's definitely a challenge, and it is very hard to come up with a standard parameter. And that's been a struggle for me being on the IC committee as well, because when you have a solo practitioner in a rural area who's a mixed animal versus a specialist at a hospital in Dallas, you're definitely correct in that the medical record keeping is an issue, and, definitely don't want to put an undue burden, especially if, for example, if like, I don't know what kind of record keepings, like you just said, that they keep in the human or the dental. And if there is a standard in those industries and they've done a better job at doing it, maybe we should look at what they have done. But the medical record thing is definitely a concern across the industry. I agree with you. And I do wish there was a better way to educate everybody on, the basics. And I don't know how detailed we want to make it, but you're right. I mean, when you look at a record and you're like, where's the TPR, I do agree. I mean, we need to come up with I would like to have some kind of a basic standard, like a bottom line standard, that every record had to have, and then move up from there. I just don't know how we create that.
Yeah, it's almost an impossible task, but we do have some records in the Veterinary Act or some indications on what to keep in your records in the Veterinary Act. But it's just difficult because I think that's kind of our go-to, and as a board in our penalty phase, it's kind of a go-to. Well, this guy didn't have this in his medical records, but then we can overlook that in another case because he didn't have this, and it's just hard. And I know that it's impossible for us to necessarily make specific guidelines, but if we're going to do that in our cases of punishment, then there needs to be specific guidelines, or we at least need to okay the continuing education that's out there, in my opinion. But I'm open to y'all's thoughts.
Yeah,
I would agree with you, but it's interesting in the rules of our medical record keeping that a lot of them say should have this if it pertains to the case. So then that's where our judgment comes in when we're reviewing these medical records, I think. And I'm sorry, I definitely want to hear what you had to say, Dr. White. I didn't mean to interrupt. I know you have something to say as well. So it does leave it open, I feel like, and then it kind of depends on what standard of care and what was going on with the patient, whether that information really truly needed to be in the record. But I mean, I think seems like when I review these medical record rules, it's kind of if a lot of them are if it pertains to the case. So sorry, Dr. White, go ahead.
No, I agree. Sometimes I have trouble, like a surgery case, a monitoring sheet during anesthesia. Sometimes it seems like the only time we ever look at that is when the animal dies. Then we're looking back, well, did you have a monitoring sheet? Well, is it required? Is it not required? And sometimes, you say anyway, if you have a sudden death during anesthesia, were you monitoring or were you not monitoring? That gets me sometimes, how to go with that. And I've seen some where they're not required to have the sheet, and sometimes they are required, and I don't really know where to go with that sometimes. I mean, that's just an example. I'm just using that one.
Well, that's a good point, Dr. White, and I agree. I think that maybe, we may be jumping the gun a little bit, get this rules committee together, have them look over these rules. Maybe it would be a good time for us to kind of focus on what we really need to do. I didn't anticipate us having necessarily a rules committee today, and that may solve the problem. But I do think it's an issue that we all are aware of and feel like needs to be changed. And if we're going into a rules deal with Dr. Quillivan and Dr. Mixon, it's a perfect time for us to handle that, I believe.
Agreed.
I agree as well. And it sounds like this can be one of our, priority sections since it's a concern for, us going forward. So, we can certainly pick, don't have to go in order. We can pick a section as Dr. Skaggs recommends and potentially, go through some of those first and maybe even be able to present some of those to the board at some point soon. in another meeting. Any other further discussion? I don't think we need action on this then at this point.
I agree.
Okay. Dr. Skaggs, you're good with no action of a committee and us maybe?
Perfect. I think we've already taken steps in that direction. Thanks for being
Yes, sir.
proactive.
Okay, thank you for bringing this to discussion. Item number 10, also Dr. Skaggs, discussion and possible action requiring, excuse me.
I think this is a moot point as well. With our action that we've just taken as far as doing all continuing education online, I don't think it's anything that we necessarily need to address at this point. The concerns that I had from colleagues were that, they've canceled some of the
COVID, yeah.
in the in-house conferences, and they were just wanting some assurance that they weren't going to be left out to dry, if they couldn't get them. But since we're going to all online, there's really not an excuse why you shouldn't be able to get them.
And of course, as we know, that will have to be published to Texas Register, approved in a month, and then we have to fully approve that new plan next board meeting. But either way, Mr. Hellenberg and I have talked about this, and I think Dr. Skaggs, one of your biggest concerns is, oh, the COVID emergency is over tomorrow. Okay, everyone submit. That's not how it's going to play out. People will have time, if they haven't gotten any, but the fact that they know now that rule change is coming, maybe they, even though COVID is on, maybe they want to take some CE now. We always say get as much as you can now, but yes, now they can get as much online. And when it comes time to renew,
Perfect. Thank you. Just hearing us say that, I think is going to be relaxing to folks.
Okay. Any further questions regarding item number 10? Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Skaggs. Item 11, committee appointments. That comes down to me. So we won't officially be appointing the rules committee, but we have an ad hoc now. I intend for the committees to remain the same, which I can restate if needed, except for Finance Committee. I am removing myself from Finance Committee, and the Finance Committee will continue to be the chair, Dr. Kreiner, Mr. Chacon, and Miss Whitehead. I did not get any other requests for anyone wanting to change or continue or be on a committee. So the executive committee will remain the same with myself as the presiding officer, Keith Pardue as the vice president, and Lynn Kreiner as our secretary. The enforcement committee, as myself as the chair, Dr. Mixon, and Mr. Chacon, Mr. Pardue, alternating public members, but of course we are able to use Sue Allen and Miss Whitehead as well as public members. The licensing committee will remain the same with Chair Dr. White, Sue Allen, and Mr. Pardue. I also intend to keep our advisory committees. We already discussed the finance committee. The advisory committees I intend to remain the same.
Dr. Quillivan, we will need to vote to confirm the leadership positions of the executive committee.
Oh, okay. May I have do we just have to vote or motion to accept the leadership committee?
Motion to accept.
I would hold a vote on each individual position.
Okay.
Oh,
Well, we can't vote on mine because that's not up, right? I mean, that's governor appointed. So we're voting for Mr. Keith Pardue as vice president. All in favor?
Aye.
motion and I vote yes.
Any opposed? No opposition heard. Okay, may I have a vote, all in favor of Dr. Lynn Kreiner continuing as secretary?
Aye.
I agree.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Is that adequate, Ms. Sharkey? Thank you for keeping me honest, legal. Okay, I think we are finished with item 11 then. And we move on to item number 12. Brittany will list any recusals or pulls from item number 12. Or are those just already published or?
One moment, please. So for cases to be pulled to discuss in executive session from item 12, I have CP 18042, CP 19081, CP 19082, and CP 20405. Are there any additional cases or pulled? No, if there are no additional cases, we can go to the next item.
Oh, do you want to go to the next item?
Or do we want to vote to approve the non-pulled cases?
Is that what we typically do? Or no? Okay.
Yes.
I need a motion to approve item 12 besides the cases mentioned as pulled.
Motion to approve those minus the ones that were pulled.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Moving on to item 13. Ms. Sharkey.
For cases recommended to be pulled for executive session, I have CP 18346, CP 19409, CP 20054, or potentially 34. My rating is terrible. I believe it's 54. CP 20206 and CP 20370.
I have one other.
Okay.
CP 20153.
And I thought I submitted them. We're on 13, right?
Medical review dismissals, yes.
I thought I submitted to you some polls, but I guess I would like to pull CP 18175. And CP 20207
Yeah,
and CP 20209.
correct. I had those as well.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Dr. White.
No, I just didn't mention them. I'm sorry.
And then, sorry, I didn't turn my page. You may have stated these because I think they go together. Did you have CP 2368, Brittany, Ms. Sharkey?
No, I did not.
And CP 2370.
Yes, we had 2370.
Okay.
And that one, Brittany, sorry, the one you said you thought was a 5-4 was actually a 3-4.
It is a 3-4.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Skaggs.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'll accept a motion to approve item number 13 besides the cases pulled.
Motion to accept that with other cases pulled.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I don't see Lynn.
Sorry?
I don't see Lynn.
Uh-oh, did she fall off?
Did she fall off? I think she fell off.
Maybe she'll log back in.
Sounds like her.
Motion carries. Anyway, we still have a quorum. So item number 14, consideration and approval of cases dismissed from IC. Were there any pulls from that?
Yes, I have to pull CP 17117, CP 19032, and CP 19080.
I'm sorry. I just got back in. Where are we?
We are now on item 14, asking for pulled cases. Brittany stated that she is informed of CP 17117, CP 19032, and CP 19080. Do you have any pulls you would like to add to that list? for item 14.
That's the IC dismissals
Dismissed from IC. Yes, it is.
from IC. Yeah, no, I don't have any for that one.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Does, excuse me though, does Dr. Kreiner, I didn't realize how long you'd been out. Do you have any of from the other two items that we need to go back and reverse our votes on?
So yeah, I actually, it dropped me while we were finishing 12.
But we had gone through the polls already, no, or no? 12, you weren't even there for 13.
I wasn't there for 13.
Had you sent your polls to Brittany already? Yes, okay, so we had them.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Perfect. Okay. So you don't have any additional polls on 14, then you've sent all of them to Brittany?
Yeah, 14 is,
Yeah, the ones I listed.
yeah, nope, I'm good there.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
The motion is to,
Oh, we have to say.
please, someone
Yeah, we accept all the ones that were not pulled
on item 14.
on item 14.
All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing
That's
none.
why I didn't speak, Dr. White. I wasn't sure what to say.
Thank you. Okay, item 15, consideration and approval of cases dismissed from staff.
I have on that list to be pulled CP 21006.
I have one CP 20274.
I kind of want to comment that 5 of these cases are shelter or animal control that we have no jurisdiction over. So that's disappointing, but yeah, just wanted to make that comment. Any others need to be pulled? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Do we need to state the whole thing, Brittany? Okay, we're good. We know what we're doing.
Brittany, you got my email, right? Mine's in there somewhere.
You had a case pulled from this next section.
Okay, just checking.
Okay, all in favor of approving item number 15 minus the pulled cases?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, item number 16, consideration and approval of cease and desist letters.
To be pulled, I have CP 21070 and CP 21074.
I would love to entertain a motion to approve item 16 minus the said cases.
I would make such a motion in a loving manner.
I will second gladly as well.
Thank you, gentlemen. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item number 17, citizen comments. We had no citizen comments submitted. Move on to item 18, discussion of possible agenda items and dates mainly for future board meetings. When would our next meeting potentially fall? Another few months?
We're looking at May or June.
May or June? May or June?
Would May be appropriate because that would get us towards the end of the legislative session. And my only request, and I don't know if we have a standing set, but the second Tuesday of every month is my monthly board meeting. So it's kind of hard to conflict with that, but I think May would be timely.
So therefore, the second Tuesday is not good. Either May 4th, not the 11th. I'm taking Miss Whitehead as my math correct there on looking at my weeks. May 4th or May 18th. Anyone have already known conflicts with those?
May 18th would work for me. May 4th may not, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
4th doesn't work for me either. 18th would work.
I have a conflict on May 18th, have a trial that day.
How about the 17th?
17th is good.
May 4th, May
Yeah.
4th good for me. 17 is no good for me.
Yeah, I can't do 17.
Mondays aren't good for some.
Yep.
What about, does it have to be, could we do, like, if she's got the Tuesday, we could do that same week, the 13th? Or no, does it have to be on the Tuesday?
Can it be on a Thursday? It's Zoom. We don't need a room. We've got Zoom.
Yeah, Patricia has no input on this one. She's like, no, we can't get a room. No, we can't get a room. Thursday, May 13th, anyone?
I can do
Works
13.
for me.
Yay!
13th is good.
I don't hear any no's, so we're gonna
What
pencil
time are we
in.
thinking about starting? I have a 3 o'clock meeting that day I can't get out of, but if we start early, it should be over.
Can we do it at 9?
Yeah, could we do it at 9?
Our board meetings don't take more than 2 hours, but we can certainly start at 9
Okay.
for 3 hours. Okay, 9 a.m. What do we think?
As far as future agenda items, I would like for us to consider rule number 801.256 at our next board meeting.
What was that again, Dr. Scott?
And that's the medical records rule.
No, this is actually a rule on special licenses. Rule
Oh.
801.256,
Okay.
specifically regarding special licenses for higher education, Texas Animal Health Commission, Texas Veterinary Medical Diagnostic Laboratory, and specialty practice if underrepresented.
Okay. So that's an early add to the agenda. Oh my gosh, I won't remember by then, but I'm writing it down right now. So we'll put it for next agenda items. Okay.
It's 801,
Question
801-256, right?
801.256. Yes.
So 801 means that it's actually in the Veterinary Licensing Act, which is not subject, that is something that the legislature would have to change. We don't have the authority to change our legislation.
Can we make recommendations for that change potentially?
We can, but we need to do it right now or wait 2 years.
Well, we can't do it now because of the agenda. So
Right.
guess we're gonna have to wait 2 years.
Wheels of government turning slowly.
Sounds like potentially, are you a TVMA member, Dr. Skaggs?
Yes.
If it's legislative, that sounds like your route to go.
Okay.
We are not allowed to lobby for legislation. We can give our input on it for sure, but so maybe,
I would definitely think it's something as a board we might want to look at, considering some of the
Sure.
horror stories that I'm hearing coming out of the diagnostic lab with non-licensed veterinarians doing court cases and offering recommendations to clients without a Texas medical license. So that's what that's my issues with that. So I think it's probably something as a board we would want to look at as opposed to as a veterinary association.
I definitely like that discussion. That sounds interesting.
It really does.
okay. Any further thoughts? So we have a date and we have a couple of topics brought up. We moving on? Any comments there? Okay, so it is 11:24 a.m. on whatever today is, February, where's my board meeting? February 9th, 2021, and we will go into closed session Pursuant to Government Code 551.071 to obtain advice of legal counsel under our agenda item numbers that were pulled. In addition, the board will stay in closed session, Government Code Section 551.074 to discuss personnel matters under agenda item 19, which is our executive director review, will happen in closed session. And stay in closed session pursuant to Occupations Code 801-407 to conduct deliberations relating to disciplinary action under the agenda item numbers that we pulled. Thank you. Breakout room.
We have to press that button. Hi, Patricia.
And we're back.
Waiting for everyone to be here. It is 11:09 p.m. on February 9th, 2021, and the board is now back in open session. No action was taken in closed session.
I
Dr.
think that was 1:09 p.m., but
Hmm?
You
Did I?
said
I think
11:09.
1:09.
Excuse me. Sorry, 1:09 p.m.
It is that way in California.
Okay.
Just saying.
Dr. Skaggs with us. I understand we're pending a motion here.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry about the delay. Are we ready for that motion?
I believe so. Brittany, yes?
Due to mistake on my record keeping, I would request that we reconsider the vote on CP 20-411. Pull that vote for a discussion in closed session.
Can I have a second? Is anyone wanting to second that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we will pull that. So Brittany, before we approve, we're going back into closed, right? Before we approve the other dockets.
Yes.
Okay. So, it is now 11:10 p.m. On February 9th, 2021. And at this time, the board will go into closed session pursuant to Occupations Code 801-407 to conduct deliberations relating to disciplinary action under agenda item number pulled. At this time, the board requests that all non-board members leave the room. Okay, it is 1:19 PM, February 9th, 2021, and we are back in open session. No action was taken in closed session.
We're waiting for Dr. Skaggs to come back with us.
Okay.
All right.
Hey, Brittany, I have 2 recusals I forgot to tell you about.
Will you email those over to me and we'll get those, make sure that's reflected in our materials.
Okay, is everyone present? We are coming back to item number 12. I believe, Ms. Sharkey.
So the first case we have from item number 12 that was pulled is CP 18042. Is there a motion to approve that case?
I'll move we approve that case.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
The next case I have under agenda item 12 is CP 19081.
Motion, please. Someone, we need to roll.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I heard ayes and 1 no, so it is approved to move forward, right? Okay.
The next case under agenda item 12 is CP 19082.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need to kind of count some, if there's going to be some disagreements, I need to count the ayes. So I heard 2. I only heard 2. Are there more?
Aye.
Aye.
Recuse.
4. All opposed?
No.
4 to 1. So it goes through.
And the next case under agenda item 12 is CP 20405.
Motion to approve.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor of approving this order?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you.
Can we get the motion? Who made the motion on that one?
I think that was me.
I have Dr. Mixon motioning and Dr. Kreiner seconding on that one. Okay. All right, then that concludes the cases pulled under agenda item 12. Under agenda item 13, the first case pulled was CP 18346.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
Favor of approving? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I hear 2.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
I hear 1. Approved, motion, case approved for dismissal.
The next case under agenda item 13 is CP 19409.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Approved.
The next case is C under item 13 is CP 20034.
Motion to approve.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I heard 2. 3. I see a hand. 4, 5. Thank you. Opposed?
No.
1. Thank you, Dr. Skaggs.
Right. The next case under agenda item 13 is CP 20206.
Motion to approve.
Motion to
No.
pull.
motion to pull. Second to pull.
All in favor of pulling this case?
Aye.
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 Any opposed to pulling this case? Hearing none, we will pull this case for further, I guess, IC, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The next case under agenda item 13 is CP 20370.
I move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved.
Next up is CP 20153.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Seeing 5. Any opposed? Okay. Approved.
Next is CP 18175.
Motion to approve.
Second. What? Sorry, recuse.
I'll
Sorry.
second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
The next case under agenda item 13 is CP 20207.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I'm not making them.
Motion to approve.
Okay, Carlos motioned.
Second.
Second Mixon. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
All right. The next case is CP 20209.
I move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Next under agenda item 13 is CP 20368.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the last case under agenda item 13 is CP 20411.
I move we pull this case.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Me, nay.
I'm opposed to.
I am as well, but that's 3 out of how many?
8.
Okay, so we're pulling it.
Okay. Right. That concludes the cases pulled under agenda item 13. The first case under agenda item 14 that was pulled is CP 17117.
I move we approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you.
Next case under agenda item 14 is CP 19032.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, we have how many people here? I guess I need a show of hands. I'm not counting. I counted
2 noes.
2 noes.
and 3 ayes, and someone's not voting besides me. Okay, so it is approved.
Next under agenda item 14 is CP 19080.
Move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Thank you.
That concludes the pulled cases under agenda item 14. Next up is agenda item 15. The first case pulled was CP 21006.
I move we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, it's approved.
The next case I have pulled under there is under that category, agenda item 15 is CP 20274.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
That concludes the pulled cases under agenda item 15. Under agenda item 16, the first pulled case is CP 21070.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The last case under agenda item 16 pulled for discussion was CP 21074.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Do you have all that, Brittany? You good?
Yes.
Kept it in line? Okay. Excellent. I believe we are out of agenda items.
Stop it.
It is 1:33 p.m. I want to point out this is the longest board meeting I've ever had. Thank you very much. But it
I
is
think the
1:33
September meeting was
p.m.
longer.
I don't think so. It is 1:33 p.m. February 9th, 2021, and this meeting is the meeting of the TBVME is now adjourned.
Yay! Yay!
My gavel shipped to me, please, if we're going to keep doing this